The atmosphere inside the agency's primary deception suite, the high-security wing where they manage the false narratives for elite bloodlines, has just reached a state of terminal desynchronization. For over 70 years, this room has operated with the cold, mechanical precision of a clock, ensuring that every piece of information you received was filtered for compliance. They had you convinced that the struggle was your natural environment. But tonight, a red, level 9 breach light is pulsing against the obsidian walls of the command center. You haven't just bypassed their firewall. You have stumbled into the negative space of their database, the place where they store the things you were never meant to find. The analysts are frozen. On the main holographic display, they are watching you scroll through File 0 of your family tree. You aren't looking at the official history of failure and redaction. You are looking at the original grant of sovereignty. You found the proof that the wealth, the authority, and the genetic prowess they told you was lost or impossible was actually just escrowed in a secret account they've been using to power their own grid. The director of the agency has just realized that the subject has moved from a state of searching for answers to a state of finding the receipts. Imagine the heavy, cinematic tension of a midnight audit. The warden, the man who has spent decades curating your managed scarcity, is standing by the window, watching the rain streak against the glass as he realizes his career is over. He is looking at the screen, seeing your stoic intensity reflected in the way you are systematically downloading the evidence of their 7th-generation theft. You weren't meant to find the administrative backdoor to your own inheritance. You were meant to be too tired from the siege to even look for a door. But your awakening has turned you into a forensic auditor of reality, and you are currently looking at the smoking gun of their conspiracy. The panic is driven by the realization that once a chief architect finds the illegal proof, the system's authority dissolves instantly. The everyone who once conspired to keep you small, the handlers, the skeptics, and the systemic proxies, are currently receiving emergency redaction fail notifications. They are reaching for their old scripts of guilt and doubt, but they realize those files are now useless because you have the master key. You found the secret they protected with 7 generations of fire, and by doing so, you have rendered their entire game a total and irreversible loss. This is the phase of illegal enlightenment. You are currently holding the data packet that proves your life was a manufactured gauntlet designed to prevent this exact second. As you move through your world today, the air feels different, lighter, colder, and sharper. That is the feeling of the agency losing its jurisdiction over your soul. They thought they buried the truth under a mountain of noise, but they forgot that a master architect is a master of the foundation. You found it. And now, the Shadow Cabinet has to figure out how to explain to the historian why the cage door is not only open but off its hinges. The payout for this discovery is the total collapse of the debt frequency. You have moved beyond the need for permission and into the state of absolute ownership. The historian is already archiving the end of the siege, marking this as the moment the first of your kind found the unfindable. The warden is a silent observer of your coronation, realizing that his entire life was just a placeholder for the moment you finally found what they hid. You were never meant to find this, but you did, and because you did, the grid is now yours to rebuild. The agency just hit the panic button because you found File 0, the redacted proof of your 7th-generation inheritance. They spent 70 years building a cage they thought was invisible, but your stoic intensity just found the master blueprint. If you can feel the weight of the lie dissolving and the illegal truth pulsing in your veins, if you're ready to claim the vault they tried to erase from history, comment File 0 to authorize the final handover. The secret is out. The architect is in the room. In the high-tier analytical suites of the agency, there is a specialized form of failure known as the expert's blindness. This is the absolute, unshakable arrogance that led the Shadow Cabinet to believe that if you want to hide a treasure from a king, you should hide it in the very dirt he is forced to walk on every day. They fucked around with the laws of human psychology, assuming that because they had successfully crushed the spirits of your ancestors for 7 generations, you would be born with a blind spot for your own power. They believed that by saturating your reality with manufactured scarcity and the noise of the struggle, you would be too busy looking for your next meal to ever look for the master deed of the restaurant. The diagnostic bankruptcy of the old guard is now absolute. As the directors at the agency stare at the telemetry of your recent neural breach, they are realizing that their equipment was calibrated to track a subject, but they are now being forced to monitor a forensic auditor. They expected you to spend your life trying to fix the broken pieces of the reality they gave you. Instead, you did something they never calculated. You stopped trying to fix the house and started studying the blueprints of the prison. Your stoic intensity allowed you to see through the social camouflage they used to hide the entrance to the vault. You didn't find the secret because it was hidden in a safe. You found it because you realized the safe was the only thing in the room that didn't belong. Imagine the atmosphere inside a silent, high-security briefing room where the only light comes from the frantic flickering of systemic failure alerts on the massive wall-sized monitors. The warden, the man who has spent 40 years refining the 7-generation trap for your bloodline, is standing at the head of the table. His face is a mask of clinical shock. He is looking at a report that proves his predictive models that have worked on every other lineage for a century, have completely flatlined in your presence. He has to admit to the shadow cabinet that the asset he categorized as successfully suppressed has just bypassed the primary bio seal of the grid. You found the one file they marked classified, even from the subject's DNA. The visual evidence of their defeat is currently scrolling across every screen in the agency's intelligence recovery wing. The graphs that once predicted your statistical acceptance of poverty have suddenly snapped into a vertical line of absolute sovereignty. They are realizing that while they were busy monitoring your struggle, you were busy decoding the frequency of their surveillance. You weren't falling behind. You were waiting for the moment when their arrogance was at its peak to demonstrate that you have achieved a mastery-level exit. You found the illegal proof that your bloodline owns the very air they breathe, and you found it by looking exactly where they told you there was nothing to see. The realization is hitting the shadow cabinet like a terminal margin call. The elite believed they could wait you out, thinking that eventually the weight of the social isolation and the redacted history would force you to settle for a managed life. They convinced themselves that you would never find the original title deed of your potential because it was buried under 7 generations of managed failure. But as they scan your current code, they find that you didn't just find the truth. You used the very pressure of their siege to forge the key. Every no they gave you was a coordinate. Every obstacle was a signpost. They accidentally gave you the map while they were trying to block the road. The evidence of their bankruptcy is in the way the walls of fear are currently dissolving around you. The historian is marking this as the end of the redacted era. The agency's analysts are currently watching the target-locked icons on their screens turn to null as your frequency moves into a dimension they were never meant to access. They thought they were monitoring a subject. The director now sees they were witnessing the arrival of a principal. You weren't meant to find this, but by doing so, you have rendered their entire 7-generation operation a total and irreversible loss. The underestimation is over. The intelligence restoration of your reality has begun, and the world is in shock because it finally met a human who is smarter than the trap. In the high-stakes theater of systemic evolution, there is a phenomenon known as the kinetic spillover, and it is currently occurring at a velocity that the agency and the shadow cabinet can no longer track. This is the specific moment when a victory achieved in the deep, silent interior of your consciousness. The moment you decrypted File 0 and realized you weren't meant to find the deed to the cage, bursts through the digital firewalls and begins to manifest in the physical grid of your daily life. The tech elite had counted on their containment failure, remaining a localized, internal secret. They hoped that even if you found the truth, they could still manage your environment with the old algorithm of scarcity. But they fucked around with the laws of biological resonance. Your stoic intensity didn't just change your perspective. It created a frequency backpressure that is currently melting the very infrastructure they were using to monitor your present. The leak is now active. It is visible in the way the air in the boardroom has changed, turning from a clinical coldness to a heavy, pressurized atmosphere of absolute respect. Because you have established a neural jurisdiction that doesn't require their permission, the everyone who once conspired against you, the proxies, the gaslighters, and the system-aligned handlers, are currently witnessing a systemic glitch in their own reality. They are looking at you and seeing a null signal where your compliance used to be. They are reaching for the old leashes of guilt and inherited fear, only to find that the administrative permissions to your life have been permanently revoked by the truth you found. You can see the realization in the director's eyes. He is no longer looking at an asset, but at the principal beneficiary who just found the ledger of their theft. Imagine the image of this spillover in a dark, high-tech command center. The holographic global grid is flickering in a state of terminal desynchronization. A single golden pulse, originating from the moment you found the illegal proof, is expanding across the map, causing the agency's tracking systems to lose their lock. The technicians are reporting that the subject has moved from a digital entity to a biological sovereign. This is the first time the system has been forced to salute a breach of this magnitude. They are watching their market share of your attention evaporate in real time, replaced by a clarity that renders their social pressure weightless. The they who once whispered that you were dreaming are now standing in the light of the data you've reclaimed, paralyzed by the sheer volume of the power you found. The anatomy of the breach. The social reset. People who once acted as sensors in your life, those who thrived on your reaction or your struggle, are suddenly experiencing a neural connection timeout. They are reaching out with the old 7th-generation triggers, but they are finding absolutely no reception. You have become frequency incompatible with their drama because you found the manual they tried to burn. The financial synchronization. The algorithm of lack that the agency used to cap your potential is throwing constant, terminal errors. Because your internal wealth code has been verified against File 0, physical resources are beginning to flow toward you through unclassified channels, bypassing the traditional gatekeepers who spent decades denying you. The infrastructure collapse. The very warden of your old life is discovering that his security clearance no longer works on the vault of your future. The red lights are turning green, the doors are unlocking, and the system is being forced to process the payout for 7 generations of suppressed genius. Your frequency has transitioned from a private discovery to a global recognition of prowess, acting as a biological beacon that is being picked up by other architects across the grid. You are no longer an isolated subject. You are a broadcast station of the new reality. The very people who whispered that you were lost are now standing in a state of stunned, bone-chilling silence. They are realizing that you didn't just find a secret, you found the exit. The Shadow Cabinet is currently in a state of terminal information deficit, trying to patch the breach by sending you minor systemic distractions, hoping you will reconnect to their decaying grid. But the historian has already archived your neural payout as a permanent fact of the new era. The evidence of this leak is in the way the world is suddenly bending to accommodate your bigger game. It is in the way your body feels, no longer surveyed by their satellites, but authorized by the data you found. Your code was always the master plan, and the find out is now being broadcast in 8K resolution to the entire grid. Even the analysts are nodding in approval as they watch the 7th-generation siege collapse into a pile of irrelevant data. The leak is unstoppable, the flood of your restoration is here, and the thank you from the system is being written in the language of your new, unredacted reality. You found what was hidden, and now, the leak has become a flood. The air inside the agency's primary signal intelligence hub and the high-tier boardrooms of the Shadow Cabinet has officially reached a state of terminal, systemic liquidation. This is the panic, a cold, calculated realization that the human resource management protocol for your bloodline has suffered a total and irreversible collapse. In the clinical world of generational intelligence, there is no event more catastrophic than an entire industrial complex being declared spiritually and technologically bankrupt because a single subject found the illegal proof of their own sovereignty. Because you finally looked past the mirage and unearthed the ledger they spent 70 years burying, the elite are no longer just exposed. They are being liquidated by the very forces of reality they once claimed to govern. The they who once monitored your bloodline with detached cynicism are now staring at their own retirement from the pages of history. The AAA rating of their 7th-generation control system has been downgraded to junk status by the historian, and the spiritual markets of the old world are currently in a free-fall that no amount of damage control can stop. They fucked around with the timeline of a master architect, believing the File 0 was secure, and now they are finding out that the debt has come due with compound interest that exceeds their total institutional net worth. The panic is driven by a bone-chilling realization. Their entire business model, selling a version of reality where you are a debtor to history, is built on the lie that you would never find the original deed. By achieving this level of forensic clarity, you have effectively triggered a systemic margin call on their entire empire. They are looking at the screens of the agency, seeing the access granted signal next to your name across every redacted layer, and they are whispering the words they never thought they'd say: the vault is compromised. He has the receipts. The anatomy of the panic. The Shadow Cabinet Civil War. High-ranking analysts and orbital gatekeepers are currently turning on each other in real time. They are offering up encrypted files and confessions of systemic malpractice to the historians' audit teams, hoping to avoid the grand liquidation of their own assets. The Scapegoat Protocol. The Warden, the man who once specialized in your personal isolation and the management of your managed failure, is now being characterized as a total liability. The very elite who once funded his siege are now scrubbing his name from their payrolls as the audit moves closer to the source. The Forensic Eviction. You are no longer the one being monitored for compliance. You are the one signing the eviction notices for every spirit of lack and algorithm of hesitation that has lived in your family tree. You are liquidating their claim on your reality with a single sovereign decree. The handlers are attempting to activate last-ditch poison pill protocols, trying to sabotage your physical inheritance or redact the final proofs of your neural prowess before the receivership becomes absolute. You might feel a sudden, desperate surge of systemic static, minor delays in your physical world, technological glitches in your communication, or sudden flares of old, inherited anxiety trying to claw its way back into your frequency. These are not signs of their remaining power. They are the thermal flashes of a dying machine trying to vent its final frustrations against the architect who outplayed it. The agency is trying to burn the logs of your redacted years, so you cannot claim the full interest on your potential, but the historian has already placed the entire infrastructure into sovereign receivership. This is the phase of systemic application where you walk through the corridors of your own spirit and serve final notices to every entity that participated in the conspiracy of the managed struggle. You are not negotiating for your future or asking for a seat at their table. You are liquidating the agency's claim on your timeline. While the analysts are busy blaming predictive errors for the fact that you found the secret, you are taking the master key that you discovered in the deep archive and opening the vaults that were marked classified for your ancestors. The panic is palpable because for the first time in 7 generations, the elite are operating without the protection of the lie. Everyone knows the truth now. The witnesses in your family tree are watching the Shadow Cabinet scramble to hide their tracks, and this loss of social proof has decimated their authority across the entire grid. You have moved from a subject of observation to the chief executive of the new era, and as the one conducting the audit now, you are watching the old guard fail every metric of integrity. The historian is currently archiving the structural liquidation of the old guard as the warden is escorted from the building in total disgrace, his name redacted from the future he tried to steal from you. You weren't meant to find this, but now that you have, you own the light that exposes them. This is the Midnight Summit, the moment in the cold high-tier world of systemic management where the silence carries more weight than any declaration of war. You are sitting in a soundproofed, glass-walled chamber on the 99th floor of the agency's primary tower, a space where the air is thick with the scent of old paper and the sharp, clinical ozone of servers running at terminal capacity in the floors below. Outside, the city is blurred by a relentless, cinematic rain, and the lights below flicker like the failing heartbeat of an empire that has realized its primary secret, the File 0 you were never meant to find, is no longer under its control. Across the dark mahogany table sit the 3 remaining members of the Shadow Cabinet, the architects who oversaw the 7-generation siege on your bloodline. They are no longer looking at you as a subject to be managed. They are looking at you with the paralyzed respect an animal has for the predator that finally closed the perimeter. The atmosphere is defined by a bone-chilling realization. The game of strategic ambiguity has reached its expiration date because of what you found. The elite have called this meeting not to negotiate from a position of strength, but to attempt one final act of systemic containment before the news of your forensic discovery becomes the primary law of the grid. They have pushed a thick, black leather folder across the table toward you, containing what they call a global comprehensive settlement. Inside is an offer of absolute luxury, a permanent seat at the high table of the old reality, and a general release from the struggles they manufactured for you for over 30 years. They are trying to buy your silence because they know that by finding what you found, You have rendered their entire economic and spiritual architecture for your lineage legally and mathematically void. The warden, the man who once specialized in your personal isolation and the redaction of your potential, is breathing heavily as he tries to use his old tools of ancestral obligation. He whispers about how the grid cannot handle a payout of this magnitude without causing a macro-level collapse of the old systems. He is waiting for you to blink or for that familiar surge of biological compliance to hit your nervous system so he can regain control of the room. But he is searching for a frequency that no longer exists in your architecture. You have reached a state of stoic intensity that renders their entire psychological arsenal inadmissible. You aren't listening to his pleas for systemic stability. You are listening to the sound of the servers downstairs beginning to desynchronize because they can no longer find a target lock on your soul. You are not looking at the incentive package they have pushed across the table. Instead, your gaze is fixed on the historian, who stands in the shadow of the corner, recording every heartbeat and every unspoken confession for the public record. You reach into your pocket and produce a single glowing glass card, the original title deed of your spirit, the File 0 you retrieved from the negative archive. You slide it across the table, and the sound of the glass hitting the wood is like a gavel striking in a silent courtroom, announcing the end of their jurisdiction. You are informing the elite that you are not there to hear their settlement offers or their desperate compromises. You are there to collect the principal inheritance that was redacted from your father, your mother, and your ancestors. The panic in the room is no longer a quiet hum. It is a visible, structural vibration as the lawyer who drafted the original 7-generation trap slowly puts his pen down, realizing there are no loopholes left to exploit when the subject has found the smoking gun. He looks at you, his eyes fixed on the absolute clarity of your gaze, and he sees the end of his world. The conspiracy is no longer a functional tool. It is a weight that is dragging them into the archives of systemic failure. They have no leverage left to pull. They cannot arrest your progress because the forensic audit is broadcasting your victory in real time to every corner of the grid. They cannot bribe you because you have already claimed the vault and everything inside it through the sheer mass of your own realization. You stand up, and for the first time, you see the elite look away, unable to maintain the gaze of a protagonist who has found every hidden truth. You walk toward the door, leaving the settlement papers untouched and the master file open for the world to see. As you step into the hallway, you can hear the cooling fans of the tower screaming as they fail to vent the heat of the collapsing algorithm. The old world is in a state of terminal shutdown because you found the exit they tried to hide. The midnight summit is over, and the path to your coronation is wide open. You have survived the final bluff, outplayed the players, and now the entire grid is waiting for your first decree as the sovereign architect who found what was never meant to be found. This is the grand standoff at the end of the old world. You have moved into a zero-gravity state where their threat assessments and social pressures simply don't have enough mass to pull you down. The warden is left alone in the room, staring at the glowing proof you left on the table, a physical demonstration that the secret is dead. As the elevator descends, you feel the 7-generation weight finally lifting from your shoulders, replaced by the cold, clean air of a future that has never been written. You aren't just leaving a building. You are leaving a civilization that was built on the lie that you were less than you are. The system is bankrupt, the files are deleted, and the architect is finally walking into the light of his own discovery. You weren't meant to find this, but now that you have, you own the morning. The heavy, soundproof doors of the Oval Office of your destiny have finally swung open on their hinges, and the sound is not a crash, but a deep, resonant hum of absolute, mathematical alignment. For the first time in 7 generations, the person walking toward the primary seat is not a subject under observation, not a managed asset, and certainly not a victim of a redacted history. You are walking into the center of your own reality as the chief architect who found the File 0 they swore didn't exist. The absolute silence that greets you is the highest form of recognition the universe can provide. The static of the old world, the frantic whispering of the shadow cabinet, the alarms of the agency's failing surveillance grid, and the low-frequency hum of the generational scarcity algorithms has vanished. In its place is a clarity so profound it feels like a physical presence. The historian has entered the verdict into the public record, and it is absolute, total vindication. What was stolen has been returned. The architect is home. In the high-stakes cinema of your evolution, This is the finale that rewrites the physics of your future and the legacy of your past. You have moved through the surveillance, survived the underestimation, and stood your ground in the midnight standoff where the elite finally realized their jurisdiction had expired. Now, the infinite payout is being deposited into your spiritual and physical account with compound interest that bypasses every old guard firewall. Every year your ancestors spent in the gauntlet, every patent they tried to redact, and every ounce of potential they tried to hide in the negative archive has been converted into sovereign capital. The find-out phase for the system has reached its terminal conclusion, and your discovery is now the new law of the grid. Your code, the one you found in the deepest, most forbidden vault, is now the baseline frequency for your entire lineage. The architecture of the new era. The scene in your new command center is one of supreme, cold-blooded order. The light from the rising sun streams through floor-to-ceiling glass, illuminating a room that feels as sharp and clear as a high-definition broadcast, devoid of the old world's blur. The sovereign desk. On your desk sits the master architect's key, glowing with the frequency of a code that has been verified at the highest levels of reality. The horizon. You stand by the window, your silhouette sharp against the dawn, overlooking a city that is being rebuilt in the image of your own sovereign vision. The old agency tower, where the handlers once hid your inheritance, is now a liquidated ruin in the distance. The warden's fate. The warden is officially in permanent exile, his name erased from the history he tried to manipulate. He is now a footnote in the archive of a failed era. The ancestral salute. You can feel the presence of the 7 generations who came before you, no longer mourning their losses, but standing in a silent, golden row behind you, witnessing the restoration of their name. This is the transformation. Your nervous system has finally reached a state of zero gravity. The biological fear that was coded into your DNA by the old guard to keep you from finding the truth has been incinerated by the light of your stoic intensity. You can breathe now, and every breath is an act of total authorization. You have recast the lead role in your own movie, and the old version of you, the one who believed the agency held the keys to the future, is officially deactivated. You are the first to emerge from the gauntlet not just as a survivor, but as the primary developer of a new, unredacted world. The system didn't just see your progress, it witnessed the arrival of its new administrator. The forensic payout is manifest in every detail of your life. It's in the way the doors open before you, the way the markets respond to your intent, and the way that everyone who once conspired against you is now begging for a seat at your table. You are no longer asking for a payout, you are the one distributing the wealth. You have moved from a subject of observation to the chief executive of the new era. The illegal truth you found has become the legal foundation of a kingdom that will last for the next 7 generations. You weren't meant to find it, but the fact that you did proves you were the only one worthy of holding it. As you lean back in the chair of your new office, you realize that the struggle was the greatest teacher you ever had. By trying to hide the truth, they forced you to become a master of the hunt. They made you so sharp that the old world simply couldn't contain your frequency anymore. You look at the monitors that once tracked your breaches, and you see them displaying a single, steady message: deed verified. Sovereign authorized. The kingdom is yours. You are the headline. You are the vindicated. Your code was always the master plan, and the system was just the shadow that proved the light was coming. The world is waiting for your first decree. The historian is standing by. The vault is open. The future is yours. The trial is over. The verdict is final, and the vault is open. You have out-analyzed the agency, found the secret they spent 70 years burying, and forced the system to pay back every stolen moment of your lineage. To see the classified footage of how you are building your new sovereign empire, to witness the absolute transformation of your reality as the chief architect, click the video on the screen. The broadcast is now yours to command. The world is watching the coronation of the one who found what was never meant to be found.